Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 tournament game 4, where we are playing Nazca. I'm Fumble City today. This is turn 56. Let's jump into things, and hopefully not be super long-winded. We did a bunch of site searching last turn. We were really hoping that we were gonna get good results on our Dark Knowledge, because this is basically it. We've got no more dark knowledging to do, so fingers crossed. The horror specs and augury found a glowing hill. We'll come back to that. Voice of Apsu, gnome lore, voice of Apsu, nothing. Dark knowledge, found nothing. Voice of Apsu, found nothing. Dark knowledge, found nothing. Auspex, found nothing. Arcane probing, found nothing. And dark knowledge, found nothing. Fuck! Alright, that's really unfortunate. We're stuck at 13 death gems. That's not horrible, it's just not where we would rather be. It is what it is. So, let's go back to this augury with the glowing hill. So, site searching for the turn, we found the glowing hill. That's interesting, but what is the glowing hill? It's actually a relatively I don't know if it's a relatively rare site, but I just haven't seen it very frequently. So when I first saw it, I was like, what the fuck's this? I looked at it, I was like, glowing hill, augury. It's a fire gem. It's not. It's not a fire gem. This enables the recruitment of Dinyashis, which I think is how you pronounce that. And these are basically the Aryu or TNN, maybe not TNN. I think TNN has horsies. But this is like the green elf sacred, or one of the green elf sacreds, right? Rather than the red elves, which are the Van elves, right? Or the black elves, which are the the Vanheim, not Niflheim. Helheim. Ugh, couldn't think of it. So anyways, this is actually really interesting. These are sacred units that we can recruit from not our capital. And we are very much a sacred nation, right? This means that we could get elven units, stealthy, glamored elven units with our bless, right? And specifically a high defense bless. These guys pop in at defense of 15, so we could bump them to a 20 with our bless, which is pretty solid. The only side effect is that we don't have a very killy bless, so these guys wouldn't be doing a lot of damage, and they don't have magic weapons because we don't have magic weapons, which unfortunate. But this is actually really interesting. We are probably, I don't know if we're gonna go crazy making these constantly for the rest of forever, but we are probably going to make at the very least a small contingent of these units, because they could be a very useful stealthy party for us to try to deal some raiding or counter raiding damage to someone like Van. So that's actually relatively interesting for us. And these are threatening, right? Like, because when we bless them up, you know, Van has to worry about something like the shock weapons, right? Like coming in and being a problem. The strength +4, right? We don't have the most killy bless, but strength +4 does put these bronze spears at 19 damage, right? 19 piercing damage can actually break through things. And if we send these Dinyashis on the training montage in the Ancient Master, like we're doing with everything else, then we can turn these relatively unthreatening attack skill 13 bronze spears easily into an attack skill 16, right? Which is much likelier to hit something like a Van or a Van here or something like that, and could actually be a problem, right? Like, that's pretty interesting to us. So this is a very neat site to have gotten. I wish want to say this to any, like, Illwinter people watching, because that's totally ever a thing. But, like, the Glowing Hill would be a much more interesting site, a much better site, if it also allowed you to recruit not only the Dinya Shi, but, and I do believe this happens because, so we're kind of actually going to skip ahead. We'll cover it again. But if it also let you recruit Shi champions, because we got the event from the Glowing Hill this turn of a Shi champion joining us, which is really neat, because then you get this, you know, Priest 1 stealthy, glamored unit that you can use to lead around these Dinya Shis, and that's really neat, right? Like, even Air Nature Caster, really cool. If the Glowing Hill allowed you to recruit both the Dinya Shi and the Shi champion, that would be just mwah, right? But unfortunately, it just allows you to recruit the Dinya Shi, so you don't actually have that whole opportunity of, you know, doing the whole thing. That being said, we could still make use of these Dinya Shis with Huron Priests. We could just do something like a Shade Mail Haberkin on them, and in point of fact, a Huron Priest would be able to lead, well, not lead very many of them, but if you put a leadership item on them, you could lead more of them. Something like a Arcane Helmet or something like that, or just, you know, any leadership item, truth be told. But they can bless more of these Dinya Shis than a Shi champion could, and depending on which, you know, version of the Huron Priest you're getting, for example, if you have a Earth 2 random or something like that, you can throw Strength of Giants onto these Dinya Shis, and that is actually a big deal, right? Like, suddenly having, rather than 19 damage off of the Strength +4 Bless, but also 23 damage, right, off of the Strength of Giants buff, that's threatening, right? Like, 16 attack at 23 damage, 23 defense, because if they have 3 pips in attack, they would also have 3 pips in defense. That's pretty scary. That starts to actually become this situation where it's like, uh-oh, and if you don't have any shock resistance, they'll fuck you up, right? Like, that's kind of cool. That's actually kind of like a neat little thing that we could do. But yeah, so we got the Glowing Hill. Thought that was kind of neat. We unfortunately didn't get any other things. We didn't get any final hurrahs for our death gems, but it is what it is. So, moving on, we have some battles to watch throughout. We're going to watch our battle in Forgotten Woods. We sent in Sayri to do all the things. We were supposed to send in a fluffer. We did not send in the fluffer, so we do not have our bless, and we do not have body ethereal. And because we don't have our bless, we get swarms dropped on us, and we immediately, of course, we immediately get hit, and we immediately take a proc of poison, as we can see. Right? But we do have a Ring of Regeneration, so that could keep us okay. Unfortunately, we also, that single tick of poison gave us Battle Fright. So now we also have -5 morale, meaning it's very likely that we run. But running would probably be a good thing, because we've got Earth Elementals. Not 1, not 2, but 3 heading towards us. And if we had Body Ethereal, that might be okay. We might actually have been able to do something about this, because we just smacked that one for 23. Well, I don't think we actually smacked it. We actually, our Scuton of Volturnus smacked it. But yeah, we just get scooped. And we kind of figured that was going to happen. Looking back on the turn, right, it was kind of a situation of like, it was risky to send in anyways, and I not only was it risky to send in the intended state, right? But then we didn't even send it in the intended state because we failed to send in the fluffer for it, meaning that we didn't get the additional buffs that we were supposed to get, and that was a really big problem. So yeah, we got squished. We lost that gear. It's not, again, the end of the world, but now Forgotten Woods is just to the point to where it's pissing me off. We're gonna send an army at it. We're gonna take a turn or two, prep up an army, and we're gonna send it because we could have done this many turns ago, and probably we would have just taken it. But it is what it is. We fucked around, we found out, and now we're done paying the toll. We're gonna send in an actual army and do something about it. There are a couple of other battles. We've got Ulm attacking Pelagia in Blackport to take this throne from them. And there is a little force here. The problem is this is not what was intended to happen. So, we can see everything is routing. Except nothing's routing. Meaning that this wasn't a route, this was a retreat. Well, Ulm casts Fog Warriors, Mass Flight. What else we got? We don't have like a mass protection or anything like that going on. We've got Serpent's Blessing. I don't think it matters anymore. That's an unfortunate loss for Pelagia there. Pelagia screwed up their scripting. Or not screwed up their scripting, they screwed up their move orders. They wanted to break siege this turn, and then have as they assumed that they could not win this battle. They wanted to break siege and have as much of this stuff retreat as they could, and probably a fair amount of it would have retreated successfully. However, they failed to do the break siege command and had all of this scripted to retreat, and thus lost all of it automatically because it is a fort battle. Although, I think I've said this in the past, I kind of think that the auto death on fort battle retreats is kind of silly, right? Like, why would it not be possible, especially in real life, if an army has an entire city surrounded, right? Like, it might be difficult to escape from that city. Although there have been plenty of documented, scenarios where the garrison of a city breaks out by attacking a single point of an enemy army, and the enemy army takes the city, but a goodly portion of units escape. So basically the point that I'm trying to make is like, I could see maybe like increasing the death rate on units that route from a fort battle, but the fact that the idea that they can't just walk to the other side of the city and try to run away, they all just immediately die in the streets, is kind of silly to me. Neither here nor there kind of conversation, though. This is just an unfortunate situation for Pelagia, which is a fortunate situation for us. And I don't mean to be that guy, but one, Pelagia has been kind of like the great evil for a long time in the game, right? Be underwater, destroy your underwater neighbors, and have close access to 6 thrones. Yeah, everyone's gonna be like, nope, keep your eyes on the fish, don't let the fish do anything, blah 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 blah, right? But the great evil being underwater doesn't really serve my purpose anymore, right? Keeping eyes on the fish doesn't keep Vanheim in check, and it doesn't keep Ulm in check. Ulm taking this throne this turn, right, immediately started the prompting of conversations because now Ulm has 3 thrones, like 2 that they absolutely control, right? Like that they have claimed. This one that they control, and now they're close proximity to 3 others, right? So now they're in the same kind of boat as Vanheim. Whereas Pelagia has not really been that kind of like existential threat yet because they haven't found that good footing on land. So, this is actually very good for us. This serves our purpose because it makes the world go, uh-oh, Ulm, right? Just as much as they're going, uh-oh, Vanheim, which we are more interested in both uh-oh, Ulm and Vanheim now than we are the world going, uh-oh, Pelagia. At the same time, though, Pelagia is still an uh-oh, especially for us. So having Pelagia lose these units is also incredibly nice for us because any losses from Pelagia are incredibly nice for us, right? That means a weaker Pelagia in the long run, which Pelagia might end up being one of the only targets that we have, right? If we continue our alliance with Ulm, if things go well against Van and Ulm is in check, we might literally only have the choice between Ulm or Pelagia, right? So, a weaker Pelagia, good for us. Eyes on Ulm, good for us. So, very happy about the result here in Blackboard. This is a Magic Phase attack on Jotunheim, with Vanheim attacking. Big stack. This is going to be a comment. Yay! This singular Vanjarl has some gear. And he's going up against a very large amount from Jotunheim. And he is triggering gem usage. And of course, he is intentionally triggering gem usage, right? This Vanjarl is probably going to either die or fly away, because there is very little chance that he destroys this entire army, right? Especially when he gets Soul Slayed. But what he did do... God damn, that's so many skeletons. But what he did do is he burned a usage of Wailing Winds, he burned a casting of Grip of Winter, he burned a casting of Howl, he burned a casting of Relief, and he burned up a bunch of Imps and Swarm. So, let's go see what happens here. Okay. This is a problem. Before we watch the battle, I'm not gonna say a lot on this because plenty of players throughout the course of this game, players that are significantly better at the game than me and have a significantly better understanding of the game mechanics than I do. Not only the game mechanics, but also the way the game works and how the game is coded and what is possible within the game. Plenty of those people have already had lengthy discussions about this situation and have waxed poetically, have offered suggestions, that there have been real changes, blah, 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 since the creation and release of Dominions 5. But gem baiting is such a fuck tactic, and we all do it, right? We all do it because it's not just there, but it's conceptually it exists for a reason, right? It is a legitimate tactic. That's not my criticism here. My criticism is that any player worth their salt would be able to identify in certain situations, right, that I am probably never going to want to use my gems against a single unit, right? Versus, obviously, I want to use my gems against X number of units. I would love, and this is actually, this carries off of my single player games, right? I would love to see in the future adjustments, and I know there have been adjustments to the way that gem baiting works. I get it. I know. I understand. Please don't at me over this. Again, smarter people have been there. They've done that. I've listened. I've read, etc., etc. Dominion 6 or a future for Dominions 5 or whatever the case may be, something as simple as allowing us within the 5 scripting window to say, you will cast this spell no matter what with the gems that you have, right? And specifically, it would, I think we should be able to granularly say, you will cast this spell with 2 gems. You will cast this spell with 3 gems. Let us put in the number. Let us put in, let us sock it in. This spell, how many gems do you want to put on it? Boom, boom, boom. You will not use less or more than that, right? We only get 5 pieces. Give us finite control over that. And let us say, you will always cast this spell with this many gems. You will cast this spell with this many gems if triggers, right? If the gem bait trigger effect, right? Because what that allows then is that allows us to build upon situations where gem baiting should exist. It is a legitimate tactic. It should exist in the game. I support it existing in the game. I think using gem baiting can lead to some of the coolest interactions imaginable. It's fantastic. But the idea that you can send one commander or one caster with a couple of pieces of gear to gem bait is very frustrating, right? When you don't have finite control, because a good player, if they had the capabilities of finite control, the only finite control we have is put 30 gems on your fucking units and hope that you don't get magic phased by 7 opponents, basically. Which is, it happens sometimes. It really does. But like a really good player would have the ability to assess a situation and go, okay, I want to, I could get gem baited. I could get gem baited. If I get gem baited, I want to cast this spell because this spell is so important, right? That I need to cast it no matter what. If gem bait trigger, right? Cast this spell. If gem bait trigger, but fewer than, right? If gem bait trigger 1 unit, or if gem bait trigger less than 5 units, right? Like, give us some amount of flexibility there. Like, give us the ability to set some parameters. Obviously, like, you can't, whatever the parameters are, people are going to figure out those parameters, and they're going to be like, okay, fine. If the parameter is less than 5 units, or 5 or less units, right? I'll magic phase in 6 casters. Okay, fine, but at least at that point, their magic, if Vanheim had to magic phase 6 Van Jarls with gear, right, in to trigger the gem bait, then that might matter, right? Like, that's not insubstantial at that point. Fine, fair enough, you gem baited me, good job, right? But the core issue that I have with gem baiting, summing this all up, right? Because otherwise I'll wax poetic forever, and I already said I wasn't going to wax poetic on this, and I obviously did. The issue with gem baiting right now is that the defender has little to no control, whereas the baiter, I say the defender. What I mean is the person having their gems baited, right? That person has little to no control in the situation, little to no input into the situation, I think is the better way to say. Whereas the person doing the baiting has all of the control, question mark, right? Like, they have all of the impetus, they have all of the input, but ultimately it's actually just the system deciding. Because I've seen shit where people are like, I'm gonna throw this thing out there and it's gonna gym bait, and it does. And then they go, I'm gonna throw this thing out there and it doesn't gym bait, and it should have. Sometimes questionable, right? Like, it's not super granular, it's not super finite, or at least it doesn't seem to be. I know people have told me, quoted specifically, if you do this with this many items, this many units, blah 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 blah, it will trigger. Sure, I've seen that most of the time, right? But regardless, that means that, again, the person being baited has no input, the person doing the baiting has all of the input, but neither of them ultimately get to make that kind of like triggering decision. It's the mechanics behind the game. Again, it's that kind of concept of the game thinking it knows best. Oh, you need to use your gems for this. No, I don't. Don't do that. Stop that. Quit it. Right? Like, stop. Give us the ability to choose specifically, I want to always use my gems for this. I want to gem bait, situation, right? Like, if gem baited, use gems. Or something along the lines of, do not use gems if less than 10 units, if less than 5 units, right? Have that kind of like, that ability, that input for the person who is being baited to be able to do anything. Because right now, the only thing that we have is, you're afraid you're going to get gem baited? Okay, put 3, 4, 5 battles worth of gems on your units and hope they survive the fights. Done. That's it. That's the input that we have. And now I've waxed poetically for like 20 minutes on that. I'm going to move on. Let's watch this battle and see how it goes. I'm not going to do a... Yeah. We'll watch. We'll do it. We'll do a fly-in. We've got a shit ton of Vanheers, but also Vans and Van Jarls, right? And a bunch of other mages all hanging out. Very nice. Air mages, a bunch of Einhairs here. We've got a couple stacks of Einhairs. Very, very nice. And then we've got the Jotunheim force. We've got a bunch of giants with axes. We're going to ask some questions. We got a shit ton of Gigjas, right? And a couple of the Yarnvijas, which are the kind of like amped up super Gigjas. And then we actually have the god, the idol of sorcery, and this is the big abductor Nifl Jarl that's been kind of like terrorizing Vanheim. So, and we got a couple of Veti hags in the back, and a couple of Phlegotons, which is really cool. Let's see how this goes. We got big battle, big communion coming out. We've got Fog Warriors. We've got Mass Protection coming out. We've got Wailing Wind coming out from the Idol of Sorcery. Okay, so that's cool. We've got Relief coming out from the Shaman on this side. We've got a whole bunch of Air Elementals. No, not Air Elementals. Sorry, I take it back. There's like no Air Elementals. It's Vanheers just dropping in the back. Oh, kitted out Vanheers with Gate Cleavers and Great Swords of Sharpness. Oh no. And then we have a Firestorm cast by the Phlegotons. Did he pop himself? Wait, was it not his Pyroflegaton? Was it a Pyroflegaton over here? Really not. It was! Ah, it's a different one! There's so many of them. So, oh no, okay. So, that's not great. Yeah. Jotunheim doesn't have much up, right? They don't have their relief up. I don't think they have any of their buffs, like their protection buffs. Obviously, they don't have things like... Ugh, they're getting mulched. And the Gijas aren't casting enough. They don't have Grip of Winter up. Okay, if the Gijas... Oh, they can't. That's why. And this is the downside of Sabbaths versus Communions. The Gijas can't Sabbath. They... Yeah. They are not being able to Sabbath up because they only had so many blood slaves. Oh, yeah. There's no way. If they had the Sabbath going, this would be 5 times as many undead already. This would be a huge amount of undead. Oof. Big oof. Grip of Winter would have been pretty nice here too. Although the Vans have cold resistance, so do the Einhairs, so it wouldn't have mattered as much. I'm not going to say anything like pour one out for Grippa, considering this is primarily my fault, but that, I think, is kind of bullshit. Now, okay, here's the thing. Should a army of 58 have been able to defend against this army of 228 to begin with? I don't know, that's kind of questionable. It depends, right? This is a massive amount of mages, but this is a huge investment as well, right? Ultimately, though, I think if we go back and we look at what happened in this battle, right? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. That amount, the amount of imps and the amount of... Yeah, there are barely... Nope, there just aren't any more blood summons. Or blood summons. There aren't any more... Fucking Christ, that's so many long dead. There's so many long dead and freaking swarm casts. Yeah. It also have... Are they just casting lucky? Yeah. Look at that's really unfortunate. Because this is what Van would have had to deal with. Right? This, importantly, is what Van would have had to deal with if he had not burned all of those blood slaves. And that's really unfortunate. That, I think we made the... We've talked about this a couple times, right? This, can Jotunheim hold out against Van for the amount of turns it takes for us to end our nap and start fighting? And I think the answer now is obviously no, right? I think this is the majority of what Jotunheim had left. They were defending their capital. We were hoping for another great Grippa cap defense. And I think this would have been a great Grippa cap defense if Vanheim had not been able to gym bait all those blood slaves. That is unfortunate. That's a really cool battle, I will say that. Really cool battle conceptually, but really unfortunate. So, I apologize. I didn't cover this, but I mean, I did cover it. We watched it, but I didn't note it. So I'm going to note it here. Battles for the turn. We versus Indies, we had 0 wins and 1 loss. So it's 35 minutes in. God, I apologize. Let's blow through this. That's really what's happened for the turn. So let's talk about all the other shit. Had some unexpected events. We got some death gems. We got the She Champion. We talked about that a little bit. And then we got province income in Satrandith. So for the turn, we had 0 negative events and 3 positive events. Satrandith income plus 20. Mark magic plus 1. We got a She Champion, and we got 10 death gems. So very happy with that. And yeah. What do we got as far as actual stuff goes? Not a lot. We are moving around a whole bunch of stuff, but almost all of it is just... so we're going to stop suiciding Hatan Runa, and we're going to start moving them around to locations to patrol. We're going to start probably... I don't know if we're going to do this in every province, but we're probably going to put at least a stack of 60 or so in a lot of provinces to start patrolling. Well, I say that. We might do that. We're going to at least put some on the border with Vanheim to see if we can catch some scouts. And obviously, we're also going to have them there to fly into Van lands on turn 60. Now, they'll die. Don't get me wrong. But they're expendable, right? Again, we've been throwing hundreds at Forgotten Woods for the last several turns. We don't care if they die or not. That's perfectly fine, right? That's a turn from a Van Hero or a Van Jarl, right, that has to go kill that stack of Hatan Runa. Great, easy peasy. Perfectly happy with that. So we're going to load up our border with Hatan Runa, probably. And then other than that, again, we continue to just do the eternal, like, push of healing up all these units. We've got 420 living units that we can get. We're trying to continue to bury in the Huakas, so we're getting up to that 45. We're capped out on 80 undead. I'm thinking we might actually make a undead, the Rod of Undead Leadership or whatever it is, here in the near future, just to kind of like increase the amount of Supayas that we can have. And yeah, basically we're just continuing to kind of like do the massive grind. I haven't been doing it right now, but we're gonna start, I think, pulling out Supayas and sending in more Supayas, right? Because we have Supayas that we have in the capital. That we're wanting to get experience on, but we're capped here currently. So we're probably going to start pulling out Supayas that are over 100 and start cycling them in. And we're probably going to do this with most of our units if we reach caps on things. So we'll see how that goes. And other than that, we really do not have a whole lot of actual maneuvers or anything. So we're just going to go down the list of mechanical scenarios. Recruitment, we have 4 Akla this turn, 1 Malqui Priest, 1 Hydromancer, 2 Dinyashis, and 5 Sun Guards. That should be in reverse. Sorry for that. It would have been 5 Sun Guards and 2 Dinyashis. So we are going to spend a little bit of coin putting together a small-ish unit, maybe like 10 or 20 Dinyashis, and seeing how that goes. We're probably going to start ferrying them back and forth into Satrandith to also partake in the Ancient Master. I think this is another easy thing for us to do, considering we still have a shit ton of space for living units, so that should be just fine. And then everything else is relatively self-explanatory. We are getting a Malqui Priest here in Nifel. We knew that we were going to do that as soon as that was completed. We're going to get another one ASAP, right? And immediately start doing Long Dead. Great. Fantastic. So yeah, that is what it is. Hydromancers every single turn that we can get Hydromancers. And we're getting a bunch of Aklas because, again, we're probably going to make a deal with Ulm for some more Lightless Land. Nazca recruits for the turn. Oh, shit, sorry. To write this down. Nazca recruits for the turn. We have one Malqui Priest that mummified. We have 108 Hatan Runa, which is an absurd amount. I have no idea how we actually got that many. It's kind of crazy, but yeah. We got 98 Long Dead Warriors, which is so close to that 100 mark. Very, very excited there. We got 9 Supayas, and we got 1 Summon Huaka for 7 Huakas. So very cool. Special recruits, we've got our 1 Direwolf. Easy peasy. And then rituals. We got a bunch of rituals for this turn. Primarily all site searching, but not quite. So we have 1 Augury, 4 Voice of Apsu, 1 Gnome Lore, 2 Arcane Probing, 1 Haruspex, and 1 Cloud Trapeze, actually. So, really amping up the Voice of Apsu because we really don't have anything else that we're doing with our water gems, and we're actually getting a fair amount of water gems. We're up to 10 water, so that's pretty cool. And we don't have anything else that we're doing with our Hydromancers, so we're just gonna site search the shit out of our lands as quickly as possible. As many Voice of Apsus as we can, as quickly as we can, and we're still trying to make that that whole concept of like every single site searched by turn 60, every single province fully site searched by turn 60. I think we'll be very close. I don't think we'll quite make it, but I think we'll be pretty close. The reason for the Cloud Trapeze is we are actually Cloud Trapezing an Inca down to Baral because this is the last little vestige of where we don't have things auspexed. So we're going to do that. And I think up here is where we have another little vestige of things not auspexed. So I guess we have up here as well. We can't auspex into the Underhome. This location we will, which seems so crazy to me, right? Like it seems so crazy to me. You can use every other site search targeting underwater, but you can't target underwater with Voice of Apsu. Weird. And you can't target underwater with Auspex, which is also why can. Anyways, so we've got a couple little things. We're probably going to send an Inca up to Dutrandine as well. We might actually just do it with Sinchi over here. We might do things down in Baral and then Cloud Trapeze up to Dutrandine or Alifa and go from there, but we'll see. Again, part and parcel, just trying to fill out the 9s across the board. Next up, we have some forging. So we have 1 Lightless Lantern, 1 Horn of Valor, 2 Boots of the Messenger, and 1 Endless Bag of Wine. So as far as this goes, we got a couple of new things mixed in here. The Horn of Valor is because I think morale is one of the big ticket items in this game that a lot of people overlook. So when we have big leaders like Pachacuti or any of our Incas, I like to put things like Horns of Valor on them. I like to do things like Helm of Helm of Inspiration or Crowns of Command, Herald Lances, etc., etc. The prevalence of things like Wailing Winds, I think the only way you can really combat those is hope you kill things real fucking quick, which isn't always in your control, right? So it's either kill things really quickly or have really stupid high morale, right? And putting, you know, a Horn of Valor, putting a what's it called? Is it a Helm of Inspiration? What is it called? Helm of Heroes. That's what it's called. Helm of Heroes, Herald Lance, right? That's +4 morale. You do things like that, along with the fact that if you have high experience units, because you also get a +1 morale for every experience pip, and all of a sudden you can actually walk into Wailing Winds and it still matters, but it's not an instant I win button, right? Type situation. So, and I fully expect Vanheim to have Wailing Winds, so that is one of the issues that we're facing up against. And the other is just we want to have good morale for when we send an army at Forgotten Woods, because we don't want to get a bunch of people killed and then the army fucking rout at the last minute anyway, right? That would suck. So that's part of what we're doing. Boots of the Messenger, we need people to be able to maneuver around our territory more quickly. We're having to cloud trapeze Sinchi down to Baral because it's going to take him 2 turns to get there, right? Whereas if he had something like Boots of the Messenger, he probably could get there in a single turn, or he could get really close, right? So I don't know why I'm worrying about cloud trapezing. This turn's already done. And then the Endless Bag of Wine, we just need more supply scenarios. We're actually very close. In point of fact, I'm actually concerned. We're sending in this big unit of 150 supplies. We don't have the supplies here. We're probably about to cause ourselves some more stress. Fuck me, right? It is what it is. At this point, like, this one was kind of like a conscious decision. Again, I was like, if we do this, we're probably going to, and I was just like, whatever. We've already got the healer there, and we've already got several Paquos of the Mountain Spirits, and we've got another round of them coming in. So we're gonna have 6 Paquos here. We can probably, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 1, 22, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34-ish, somewhere in there, right? Like 5, 6 turns, right? This is going to be all gone. We're probably going to add to it, but I don't think it matters that much, right? It's me being hasty. It's me kind of getting a little hypey. Probably shouldn't have done it, but we'll see. It'll be whatever. So yeah, that's that. And then the last thing for the turn, we've got some outgoing trade. Ulm, we are sending Ulm 30 Earth Gem. And I talked about this in the last turn and talked about this a little bit earlier, but we've been looking to make a deal with Ulm for more Lightless Lanterns for a while. We've got a pretty hefty Earth income. 13 is pretty solid. We're happy with that, but we're not really doing a whole lot with it at the moment other than making hammers and continuing to do more stuff there. This is, I think, a better usage. This is for 10 Lightless Lanterns. This is gonna 10 Lightless Lanterns is what, 120 research. That's still a big ass chunk of research for us. So definitely worthwhile, right? And that's that. And not only is that, but I think that's that, right? I think that's the end of me waxing poetically about this turn. That's the end of Jotunheim, which is really, really unfortunate. I get what they were doing, trying to patrol their capital, right? I kind of wish they had just stayed in their capital. But, you know, staying in your capital tends to mean it's just slow death. The enemy is going to come for you, etc., etc. Patrolling your capital means that you might catch the enemy being cocky, right? If Vanheim had moved this army into Jotunheim's forces without gem baiting it, I actually do think Jotunheim probably still would have lost a fair amount, right? But I actually think they would have routed this force. Maybe. The kind of like the stickler, the really kind of crazy thing was the Adepta Phlegeton putting up that flames from the sky? No, not flames from the sky. What's it called? Firestorm. Right? So like the Firestorm would help to manage, right, the undead, because undead only have long dead only have a couple hit points, right? So one hit from a firestorm will typically melt a skeleton. But the soulless do actually have a bit more, right? I guess the soulless only come up from the raised dead. Regardless though, like I do think if they were all communioned up, there would have been so much more to come out in that initial kind of like foray that I think that would have really mattered. Would it have meant that Van lost this? I don't know. I don't know that it would have meant that Van lost, but I do think it would have meant that Van would have lost a lot more, right? Like this would have been a way more punishing victory for Van, or it would have been a defeat, right? But as it is, not only did Van kill Jotunheim's last real, defense here, they did that, and they're probably gonna one turn crack the fort. Like we saw all those gate cleavers, right? One, this is a sizable army that has a chunk of siege defense or siege assault with it, right? But also all those gate cleavers, right? Like we saw several Van Heers or Van Jarls with gate cleavers, meaning that this is probably popped. And that means that this is the last gasp of Jotunheim, which is really unfortunate. I don't have the right to really say anything, because again, I arranged this coalition. I was the fearmonger against Van, and I think rightly so, right? But I'm also the one who backed out. I'm the one who betrayed. I'm the one who sold out the alliance, right? And Jotunheim paid the price. I regret that. I wish that there was this happy ending. Not, too much of a happy ending, because there could be only one, right? Like there's only one victor in a game like this, so too much of a happy ending would not be great. But it would have been really cool if turn 60 had come and Jotunheim still had a standing army, and Van had not, put the nail in the coffin, and Jotunheim was able to, I attack, Ulm attacks, Van has to back off, can't focus on Jotunheim anymore. Jotunheim is able to push back, take, Forest of Idun back, take back a couple of lands, right? Take this front away from Ulm and be like, okay, Ulm, I've got this. You can go around, or you can go from the south, etc. You can go from the Ashdod territories, blah, 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 and have Jotunheim actually still be in the game. Alas, that is not to be the case. My feelings are not going to be assuaged there. I'm not going to have that, yeah, but you lived in the long run, right? Scenario. I am going to have to go to my grave, both in this game and in real life, knowing that I betrayed Grippa, and I am sorry for it. But hopefully, it will lead to something good for us in the long run. Damn. I thought I was gonna get away with it too. When I started this whole thing off, I really thought that I was gonna luck out, and that Jotunheim and Ulm's forces were gonna be too much for Van, and my betrayal would never be known. And then, even after my betrayal was known, I was like, yeah, but Ulm's gonna eventually attack Van. And then, even after that didn't happen and my betrayal was known, I was like, at this point, I was like, maybe we can ride to Jotunheim's rescue. Maybe it'll all be okay. It's not. So, though Jotunheim is not actually vanquished yet, I think that is probably the last gasp. So, good game. Sorry for the backstab. I deserve one in the future, and I will not protest it. That's going to be the turn. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.